Hey everyone, this is Riddle Hakoreja Raven. I'm here with my recap and review of P-Valley Season number 2, Episode number 7, which is titled Jackson. And yeah, P-Valley is back. It ended up taking a bit of a break after the previous episode, which was a very emotionally heavy episode, especially after what Lil Murder had to go through because of Teak. And yeah, a very emotional episode. But yeah, it's back after the break. And this episode ended up focusing a lot on Grandma Ernestine and also the dynamic between Mercedes and Tareka because of what Tareka has gotten herself into, and I also like the little thing with Haley and Sean, and I think that's a plotline that's going to be expanded on in the remaining 3 episodes. Because correct me if I'm wrong, I think that P Valley season number 2 is only going to have 10 episodes, and I really hope that this show comes back for a season number 3. But you know what? Let's see. So the episode opens up with a flashback, and we see Grandma Ernestine through the different eras as she's been singing. Because again, we get more of an explanation about her past and her history and how it's connected to the pink and why Uncle Clifford doesn't want to give it away. We'll get to that in a bit. So we have this little, let's say, a montage per se, where Ernestine is singing and the dancers and the music are changing around her. And then we also get the scene where we see Ernestine's mother and little Uncle Clifford. I think he was still, yeah, he was still called Uncle Clifford when he was young, and he's a very cute kid. And he ran around carrying a purse because again he grew up in a very supportive household. So we come to the present, and Ernestine is just standing there looking like that, and yeah, she realizes that the end is near for her. And then she ends up seeing an image of her daughter, and the daughter is like, "Mama, it's time for you to go, let's go." And Ernestine is like, no, not yet. So she ends up keeping death at bay for now. And then we get the opening credit scene, and then we get a scene in the pink where Uncle Clifford wants to talk to Haley. Now, even though Uncle Clifford is very angry at Haley because she wants to sell away the pink, he's like, you know what? We can't just continue fighting, okay? We have to talk this out, Haley. We have to, and I just don't want you to sell the pink. And Haley's like, Uncle Clifford, let me make things clear. I am going to sell the pink. However, I'm going to sell the pink for a lot of money. So she ends up telling Uncle Clifford that she got offered $5 million, but she's going to refuse this offer because she's holding out for 10 million. And Uncle Clifford is like, really? You really think that you're going to get 10 million? And she's like, hey, we need to accept the future. The referendum is going to be passed. The casino is going to be open, will be open. So why don't we just sell the pink for a profit? And she's like, you know what? I'm holding off for 10 million. Now Clifford is like, okay, you know what? It's not about the money. It's about the history of this place. It's about Grandma Ernestine, my ancestors, and everything. You own a piece of history, Haley, and you're going to sell that off just like that. And Haley's like, okay, I get that this place is important for you, but this place is important for me too. So she ends up telling Uncle Clifford how she's going to use the money that she ended up saving Pink. That was the money that she was going to use to have a better life for her and her daughter. But then her daughter died, and then she ended up using the money for the pink, and she's not going to let that money go to waste. And she's like, you know what? I made a promise to my daughter that I'm going to use that money for a better life, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. And Uncle Clifford is like, Haley, that the child's dead, your baby's dead, you need to move on. But it's Haley, and yeah, it was her child. Of course she won't be able to move on, especially not this soon, in my opinion. So talking about mothers and daughters, we cut to Mercedes, and Mercedes is like, okay, Tareka, you need to tell me what the heck are you going to do about this. So are you going to keep the baby or not? And Tareka's like, I don't know, okay? And Mercedes is like, really? Do you even know how many months you're pregnant? And again, Tareka's like, I don't know. I think that Tareka's like 14 years old, and I'm like, okay, that's a lot. That's a lot for a 14-year-old child to be going through. And then Tareka's like, you know what? But I do have a craving, so why don't you take me out and let's have some ice cream? Oh, and before this, I forgot. Yeah, I just remembered. So before this scene, we had a scene where Mercedes was talking to her sister about how Tarika will be staying more at her place and whatnot. So that's happening. So anyway, Mercedes like, okay, let's go out. Let's go out for ice cream. But Mercedes has another plan. So we got to Little Murder. Of course, Little Murder ended up spending the night at Clifford's, and he's crying because he's remembering Teak and everything that Teak did. And yeah, Teak ended up taking his own life in front of Little Murder, and that's a lot. That's a lot. And Little Murder had feelings for Teak. He loved him. It was a different love, kind of, compared to the love he had for Uncle Clifford, but it was still love. So he ends up, he goes up to check on Ernestine because it's time for her to eat some food. And yeah, Little Murder has been cooking food, and she eats it because she isn't into eating Uncle Clifford's food. And this is where Little Murder's like, you know what, you do know that Uncle Clifford and I are going through a rough patch, so I want you to put a good name, some good word for me with him. And yeah, Ernestine is like, I'll do that. But then, and also, we have this little comedic scene where Ernestine is like, you know what, even though I'm infected, I didn't lose my sense of smell. However, I did smell something else on you. And this is where she's like, I smelled death. All of that blood that night, I smelled that on you, Little Murder. And I'm like, okay, P Valley going back to the creepy thing that the writers have decided to do this season. Then we cut to Kishon, and she's at the superstore with the kids and Derek. And Derek's like, hey, Kishon, you like moon pies, right? Why don't we go buy some moon pies? And yeah, he's trying to mend his relationship with Kishon, which, yeah, that I really hope that this relationship doesn't get mended no more, because Kishon needs to leave Derek. She needs to take the kids and she needs to leave. So she ends up noticing Autumn because Autumn wants to talk to Kishon, and Kishon is like, Derek, I need to go and buy some more makeup to cover my face that you bruised up. So Derek is like, okay, I'll take the kids. I'll wait for you at the checkout counter. So go. So Kishon ends up talking to Haley, and Haley she lowers Kishon's mask, and she sees all of the bruises on her face, and she's like, okay, so it turns out that you didn't use my gun on Derek. And Kishon is like, hey, it's not easy like that, okay? I tried, but I couldn't pull the trigger. And Autumn was like, well, Kishon, there are other ways for you to be free, but you need to be free before it's too late. And the children start to cry, and Derek calls out for Kishon, and Kishon has to go. Uncle Clifford comes in, and he doesn't hear anyone in the house, so he fears the worst. He rushes upstairs, and he's like, okay, so Grandma is still alive, right? You checked her temperature, you checked her sugar levels, and Little Murda's like, Clifford, calm down. I did everything that you asked me to do, and are you... and this is where Uncle Clifford is like, you know what, it's very strange that she got infected, but I didn't. And Little Murda's like, hey, no one understands this infection, so don't worry about it. Also, are you hungry? I made food. So these two end up eating. I don't think both of them are eating. I'm not really sure. I think only Uncle Clifford is eating. So he ends up talking to Little Murder about Haley's proposal about how she's going to hold out for $10 million, which to sell the pink and whatnot. And then Clifford is like, yeah, she is really into selling the pink. And then these two have a conversation about money and love. And Little Murder is like, hey. Some love is more important than money. You can't take money with you when you die. And then Clifford is like, okay, so that's something different. Weren't you the one who said that you choose money over love? And Lil Murda's like, hey, things change, okay? Things change. And you have everything with you, and yada yada yada. It's a very emotional conversation, and Clifford is like, hey, I don't have everything, you know. And then Uncle Clifford asks Lil Murda to tell him what happened that other night, and it's time for him to share, because apparently Uncle Clifford ended up hearing Lil Murder cry at night while he was asleep on the sofa. And yeah, Lil Murder, okay, so it turns out that only Uncle Clifford was eating. Okay, so yeah, Lil Murder isn't ready to share that. He gets up, and Uncle Clifford is like, okay, take your time, you take your time. But then again, I have to go and see if I have some spare clothes that you can borrow, because it looks like that you'll be staying the night, huh? So we cut to Tarika and Mercedes is driving the car, and this is where Tarika realizes that they passed the ice cream place, and she's like, so where are we going? And Mercedes like, hey, we're going to Jackson. And she's like, really? We're going to Jackson? And this is where Tarika is putting two and two together. So she's like, okay, you're taking me to the clinic, right? You're taking me to the clinic so that I can get rid of the baby. And Mercedes like, no, that's not what I'm doing. We're just going to go there, have you checked up and whatnot, and I just want you to have choices. crisis. And of course, Tarika isn't into it. She as a 14-year-old, she's feeling a whole lot of pressure on her, and she's like, stop the car, stop the car. And she's also feeling sick, so Mercedes stops the car at this petrol station, and Tarika gets out. She vomits, and this is where Mercedes is like, okay, so you really are pregnant, but you need to make a decision. And Tarika's like, I can't make a decision right now, okay? Don't make me do this. And Mercedes is like, okay, so when the heck are you going to make a decision? When you're in the delivery room, when the child is in pre-K, when, Tarika, when? And Tarika's like, I don't know, Mom, I don't know. Which again is a very, very understandable way to react in such a situation. So Lil Murda ends up checking his phone. There are a whole lot of notifications because his song is blowing up, and then Woody calls, and Woody's like, where the heck were you? And then this is where these two talk about Teak taking his own life, and Woody's like, hey, that's a very unfortunate thing that happened, but it happened. Also, to talk about Teak's funeral, from what I could understand, now I could be wrong, I think that Lil Murda is going to take care of Teak's funeral. I'm not really sure what's happening. So anyway, Woody's like, hey, your song is blowing up, we need to go back to tour. And Lil Murda's like, okay, I'll think about it. So he ends up hearing Clifford upstairs, and he thinks that Clifford fell down. He rushes upstairs into Clifford's room, and Clifford is like, what the heck are you doing in my room? This is only for some very, very special people and whatnot. And Lil Murda's like, hey, I hope that one day I'll be special enough to be invited into the room. And Clifford is like, hey, you're already in here. So they go over all of the clothes that Clifford has, his own clothes from other people that he ended up hooked up with long ago. And then Lil Murda notices a very, very old purse, and yeah, this is where Clifford is like, yeah, that was my purse, that was my pocket purse or pocket book. I used to take it with me when I was 3 years old. And Lil Murda's like, okay, so you used to carry around a purse when you were 3? And then Clifford is like, yeah, I did. And if anyone had a problem with it, my mom would beat them up, and no one would annoy me no more. And this is where, and yeah, these two have a conversation. Again, it was a very well written conversation in my opinion, where they talk about their queer expression and whatnot. And Lil Murda is like, who are you? Uncle Clifford, who are you? And Clifford is like, I'm just me. I am Uncle Clifford. Who are you, Lil Murda? And he's like, I'm someone that the world won't let me be. And yeah, those are very, very, some very, very heavy words. So this is where Lil Murda ends up noticing the postcards that he ended up sending Clifford. He kept them, and he's like, hey, what was your favorite postcard? And Clifford is like, it was the one where you said that I looked very good in red. And again, these two talk about their self-expression and how both of them are very, very different, because Uncle Clifford is a very, very different person, especially because Lil Murda used to hook up with other guys, but they were also on the down low. They were guys that could pass for straight. And Clifford is like, but that's not me. With me, there's no passing. You have to be out if you want to be with me. And Lil Murda is like, I broke your heart, Clifford, didn't I? I made you sad. And I hurt you. And Clifford is like, hey, I don't get hurt no more. I get disappointed. And again, these two need to mend their relationship. They continue talking about everything that Uncle Clifford has gone through. And Uncle Clifford is like, hey, other people don't realize that for you to shine so bright like me, it can be lonely. It can be lonely. I understand that you couldn't stay with me. You couldn't take all of my brightness, all of my shine, which makes sense. Which makes sense because Clifford is very out and proud of who he is, and that type of proudness and that type of shine and brightness, Lil Murda isn't ready for that yet. I think he will be, but let's see. So they end. So they hear Ernestine downstairs, and they're like, "What the heck just happened?" So they rush downstairs, and turns out that Ernestine has ran away from home. And I'm like, "Uh-oh." So Mercedes takes Tarika to this diner because she needs to go to the bathroom. And while Mercedes is waiting, she notices this mother and daughter from the window of her car sitting inside the diner. And then we get a flashback between her own mother and herself when she was young, and her mother was taking her around other places because she didn't have any place to sleep at night, and then she also didn't have any money to pay for the food. And this is where her mom is like, hey, I'm short on cash, so why don't you go up to that man to ask for cash or whatnot. I think that's what her mother was implying, or maybe she wanted Mercedes to steal from the guy. I'm not really sure, but Mercedes is like, hey, don't worry about it, I have money. So she opens up her purse, and her mom notices a condom in her purse, and she's like, where the heck did you get that? And this is where her mom ends up yelling at Mercedes, and she's like, who gave you that? Who gave you? And Mercedes is like, hey, it's my boyfriend, Cortez. he's taking care of me and whatnot. And she's like, so you're taking care of him too, huh? You little W word. And she ends up beating Mercedes, and yeah, it's just bad. It's just bad. So again, we are in the car trip, and this is where Tarika ends up talking about Cleon. I think his name is Cleon or maybe Kelleon. I'm not really sure. I don't remember. He's apparently an artist. He's kind of a good artist because he ended up making this while he was 14, and I'm like, okay, I'm impressed. As an artist myself, I'm impressed. At 14, good for you. And then these two talk about how he loves Tarika, and that Tarika ended up telling him that she is pregnant, and he wants to keep the baby. And Mercedes is like, really, are you both ready to take care of a baby? And she's like, yeah, he's going to take a part-time job and whatnot. We'll make do. And Mercedes is like, do you even know how hard it is, how expensive it is to take care of a baby? And these are just words, okay? These are just words. They're saying something and doing something are different things. So these two talk about being in love and whatnot. She's like, nah, that boy isn't in love with you. What the heck do you know about love? You're still a child. And this is where Tarika runs her mouth against Mercedes. She's like, you know what? You're just jealous that someone loves me, because the type of love that you ended up experiencing, that's from the people that you dance for, and that's not real love. You're just jealous that I have actual love. And yeah, Mercedes ends up it was bad, and I'm like, Tarika, you need to shush, but she doesn't. And Mercedes ends up hitting Tarika. She slaps him, which, I mean, I saw it coming. And Tarika's like, you know what? When I have a daughter, when I become a mother, I will never slap my kid. And this is what Mercedes says. That's what I used to say too. And I was like, ooh, the writing on this show. So Clifford and Uncle Clifford and Lil Murder are searching for Ernestine. They end up finding her clothes, and they're like, okay, she's going towards the Mississippi River. We need to catch her. So Tarika and Mercedes, they reach the abortion clinic, and of course there are protesters outside, and they have to go through. They have to go through them, and Mercedes tries to hold Tarika's hand, but she's still angry at her mom. So yeah, now she tells Tarika to go inside, and Mercedes turns around, and it says this, and she sees her mother in the crowd. She hallucinates her mother in the crowd, and she's like, I need to go in. So the doctor ends up checking Tarika, and it turns out that she is like 14 weeks and something days pregnant, and I'm like, ooh, okay. And this is where she gives them the option that it's on Tarika, that she can decide whether or not she's going to keep the baby or she's going to have an abortion. And she ends up saying that there's no risk of cancer, because Tarika doesn't need to worry about that. The risks of an abortion are the same risks that you will encounter during childbirth and whatnot. And again, this is where, again, it's all on Tarika. Tarika needs to decide what she needs to do right now. So Uncle Clifford and Lil Murder end up stopping Ernestine from going into the Mississippi. Why can't I say that? Mississippi. So I stop her from going into the Mississippi River, but Ernestine is like, I need to go to the river. I need to go to the water because I need to meet my, what's the name? Behel something? But yeah, Lil Murder's like, who's that? And this is where Uncle Clifford is like, that's my mom, because Ernestine wants to go to her daughter. But they stop her, and she's like, okay, so if you won't let me get to the water, can you bring the water to me? And this is where Lil Murder ends up like pouring some water on Ernestine, and yeah, it's time for Ernestine to go. And Clifford is like, no, I'm not going to let that happen. We have to take her back. We have to call the ambulance. We have to do that. So Tarika and Mercedes are staying at the hotel. They're at the pool, and a guy notices Tarika as he walks behind them. And Mercedes is like, keep on moving. She's just 14. And then Mercedes points towards a family, a mother of like 3 children, if I'm correct. And she's like, hey, that could be your future. And Tarika's like, hey, I'll have help, right? I'll have help. I'll give the kid to you, Mercedes. And Mercedes like, really? I'm going to become a grandmother at 30? How the heck is that going to work? And Tarika's like, it could be fun. It could be fun. You could do the things with my kid that you couldn't do with me and whatnot. And then again, these two have a conversation about what Tarika wants to do in life, and how having a baby can stop you from living your own dreams. And if Tarika wants to go and visit other countries and do other stuff. And Tarika's like, what about you? Did you have dreams? Did you ever go outside the country? Did anyone anyone offer you to go to China? And Mercedes like, you know what? Someone did, but I didn't go because I wanted to stay close to you, Tarika. And then it's time for Ernestine to go to the hospital. And I was so, yeah, this scene made me very, very sad because, again, people who ended up suffering from this infection, a whole lot of them, almost all of them didn't make it back from the hospital, and their family couldn't be with them. They ended up dying alone. It was a very, very sad moment because Ernestine was like, I don't want to die alone, Clifford. I don't want to die alone. But she needed to go. She needed to go with the ambulance. And this is where the doctors are like, sir, we need to go. And a little Murda stands up for Uncle Clifford, and he's like, no, it's ma'am. So again, Tarika and Mercedes are talking about what the heck Tarika is going to do about the baby. She needs to make a decision. And Tarika's like, you know what? You don't get to tell me, okay? You don't get to tell me whether or not I'm fit to be a mother because you weren't there for me. And Mercedes like, what the heck are you talking about? And then Tarika lists all of the moments where Mercedes wasn't with her for visitation, for her birthday and whatnot. And Mercedes like, I did everything for you, Tarika. You know what I was working towards. I needed to get that gym so that I could tell the judge, I could tell my mom, I could tell my sister that I'm fit for you to be a mother. I'm fit enough to be your mother, and that I can take care of you and I can get you back. And now I have the gym. And Tarika's like, yeah, that's the point. You have the gym, but you don't have me. Why? And then yeah, Tarika ends up going into the bathroom. She closes the door, and she is under so much pressure right now. And Mercedes looks at herself in the mirror, and she sees her mom, and Mercedes like, the last thing I'm going to do is going to turn into my mom. I need you to handle the situation with Tarika in a different manner. So she ends up being more empathetic towards Tarika. And Tarika is like, Mom, did you ever consider aborting me? And Mercedes is like, you know what? I had no choice, Tarika. And in that matter, I had no choice because my mom made me go through it. But then again, I'm very, very grateful that I went through the situation, because sometimes the God sends you the devil to give you your blessing or something to that effect. And she's like, you know what? But Tarika, this is about you, okay? I don't want to force you to do anything. I just want you to have choices. So whatever you decide, I'm with you. So Tarika comes out, and this is where she's like, you know what? I think I'll keep the baby. And Mercedes is like, okay, it's up to you. So let's go home. And what color do you want your room to be? And she's like, my room for the baby. And Mercedes like, no, for you. You want it to be in green and whatnot. So yeah, these two ended up mending the relationship, which good to see. Because again, Mercedes wants things to be different for her daughter. She wants her daughter to have options. So we cut to Uncle Clifford, and he's crying in the shower because, of course. So he comes out, and Little Murda is waiting for him in this weird outfit, trying to cheer Uncle Clifford up. And he's like, "Hey, tell me how to vogue. And Uncle Clifford is like, "I don't do that. So both of them laugh. They fall on the bed, and this is Uncle Clifford cries again. And I'm like, okay, Little Murda, you have to comfort him. You have to comfort Uncle Clifford. And Little Murda does exactly that. They start kissing. They start getting intimate, and Clifford takes out a condom, and Little Murda's like, hey, we don't need that. And Clifford is like, are you sure? Are you like negative? And Little Murda's like, yeah, I'm negative, and also I need you in me, okay? I need to feel you in me. So let's do this. And I'm like, Little Murda, he's just hooked up with Deke, so I think you should just to be safe, I think you should get yourself checked, but I really hope that these two not using a contraceptive doesn't come to bite them down the line, but let's see. But anyway, this was a very intimate scene between Little Murda and Uncle Clifford, because he allowed Uncle Clifford to top him. And yeah, I'm like, okay, go for it. So it's the next morning, and it's time for them to go. And this is where Mercedes ends up giving the car keys to Tarika, and she's like, okay, Tarika, it's up to you. It's up to you to decide if we should go back to Chakalisa or if we should go to Jackson. And whatever you decide, I'm with you. So in the car ride, Tarika notices that she'll need to turn right to get to Jackson to get the abortion and everything, and she makes the decision. She makes the decision to not have a child, and I think that Mercedes is happy about it. She's glad about it, from what I can tell. So Uncle Clifford and Little Murda, after hooking up, they wake up the next morning, and Little Murda is crying, and he's like, Clifford, the other night, and Clifford is like, not right now, not right now, not unless you're ready. So yeah, I think we're going to get a scene later down in the upcoming episodes where Little Murder is going to confess to Uncle Clifford about what happened with Teak and everything. And also this particular scene, like, Little Murder is so small against Uncle Clifford. It's kind of cute. So after having the procedure, Mercedes and Derica are chilling and they're watching this comedy show. And Derica's like, "Really, you find this thing funny?" And Mercedes like, "Hey, it's a classic, okay? Respect the classics." So they get an ad of Mercedes' mom preaching and everything, and Derica wants to change the channel, but Mercedes like, "Hey, don't worry about it. This woman, it's all words. She has no power over us, and as long as we're together, it will be all right." And yeah, Derek is like, "Mom, do you think that I'm going to burn in hell?" And Mercedes like, "Oh, my dear child, if you do burn in hell, I'll be with you right there. I'll be with you." And I'm like, "Oh, that's sweet." So Autumn ends up paying Kishon a visit, and she has a gift for Regal. And yeah, this is where she ends up picking up the baby, and she tells a story to the baby about a woman who was lost in the forest, and she ended up meeting a hunter, and the hunter ended up taking her into a mansion. There was a kid, and she realized that the hunter's teeth were actually knives and whatnot. So she's basically telling her own story in front of Kishon, but Kishon doesn't know Haley's actual story. So Kishon is like, "What the heck are you talking about, Haley? What the heck?" Because Haley also talks about her tears drowning her baby because her baby wasn't able to swim, but she was able to swim and whatnot. And Kishon is like, "I'm just telling you." And yeah, Haley is like, "Kishon, I'm just trying to tell you that if you don't get out of the situation soon, your children are going to die. Your children are in danger. You are in danger, of course, but your children are going to die. And do you really want to do that?" And it turns out that the gift that Autumn bought Kishan is basically a cell phone. And she's like, "Okay, I want you to read up on Haley. Look up Haley. Haley C something? C. The last name starts with a C. I don't remember. And also, when you're ready, call me." And after saying that, Autumn walks away. So I guess that in the upcoming 3 episodes, they're going to get rid of Derek. I think that they're going to get rid of Derek, but let's see what happens. So yeah, this is where the episode ends, and of course I'm looking forward to the upcoming episodes. Let me know what you thought down in the comment section below, and until next time, stay happy, stay safe, stay blessed. See you guys later.